getting in the stink eye?
If anybody, all I got to do is go. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and we'd like to get this meeting of August the 21st, 2023 of the City Commission underway. First of all, I would like to begin our meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We thank you for your strength and resilience protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. As we begin our meeting tonight and as we interact with each other up here on the diocese as well as in the public, we ask that we do so with respect, dignity, patience, and charity toward each other. So with that, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And I think I'm going to have Mr. Harry Buckhalter lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Shamrow,
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Here.
Commissioner Stanley,
Here.
Commissioner Wilson,
Here.
Commissioner Colbert,
Here.
Mayor.
Here. One item I want to do as agenda before we get into this, I'm requesting that item G1, which is under new business, and it's consideration of authorizing the city attorney to return the application for conveyance of state land for public purposes. To remove that from the agenda, you'll see it back on here in a couple of weeks. Something came forward to me late this afternoon. I didn't see it. It's information we all need to see, and I would prefer you didn't have time to consider it. I hate dropping things on my fellow commissioners at the last minute. So we'll just do that for a couple of weeks. Okay. Excuse me? G1.
New business.
Under new business. There's only one item under new business, so I'm pulling it from, requesting to be pulled from the agenda unless there is anyone that doesn't want it pulled. I'd like to hope it's considered pulled. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have announcements from the interim city manager.
I have none this evening.
Announcements from the deputy city clerk.
Meetings scheduled this week are the Mobility Action Plan Leadership Team will meet this Wednesday, August 23rd at 4 p.m. in the committee room. The Housing Commission will meet this Friday, August 25th at 9 a.m. in the training room. And just a reminder that we have the e-newsletter, the weekly e-newsletter, the Bay Brief, that covers the latest scoop on city initiatives and programs. Make sure you subscribed if you're not. And I would like to remind commissioners, staff, and members of the public to speak into the microphone so those watching at home and the recording of this meeting is easily heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Timothy? Forward, whether you wanted it or not.
Look at him being mobile.
Oh, cruising.
Woo-hoo!
He's cruising now.
The good news is I got a ski boot on this past weekend.
No, you did
So
not.
we're good.
I cannot believe your wife didn't get rid of those.
Richard,
Timothy,
how's it going?
it's going well. 20 years.
I saw that on the desk. I'm like, okay, sure.
What were you going to do, run?
Nate gave me an opportunity to say that maybe I wasn't going to attend tonight, but
You wouldn't dare run, not with the senior center on here, no way. So anyway, folks, those that don't know it, that at the end of this month, Tim will be leaving us after 20 years. He's going to go into some phase of retirement. He's probably going to become a ski consultant and learn how to downhill ski without running into things or
running off of things.
Running off the things and stuff like that. So we're going to show you what not to do this right. But Tim, we thank you. As such, we want to give a special recognition to Tim for his efforts in being with us. And if anyone wants to have any complaints or anything about Tim, they can bring them to me because I'm the one who hired him. So it's all my fault, every bit of it. So there you go. I take full responsibility. But what are they going to do to me? So,
What are they gonna do to me?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we could have a lot of fun here. Anyway, let it be known that it is an honor to recognize Timothy Lodge for his impressive 38-year career in the field of engineering and 20 years as city engineer in the city of Traverse City. Under Mr. Lodge's scrupulous eye, during decades of great growth and change, the city of Traverse City undertook numerous infrastructure projects that are put to the test daily by thousands on foot, by bike, and by car. Mr. Lodge began his career as project engineer and manager at Whiteman and Associates in St. Joseph, Michigan in 1985 after graduating from Michigan Technological University with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. In 1989, he obtained his professional engineering license from the state of Michigan.
And I got married.
You got married then too?
At the same time.
Man, that was a lot of work. Anyway, I'm going to let that one go. That's a softball. In 2003, after years of engineering consulting work, the city of Traverse City hired Tim as the city engineer. For 2 decades, he has met the challenges of responding to regional growth while maintaining the city's unique character. An unofficial motto of civil engineers is you'll never see our best work. In that respect, much of Tim's legacy is more invisible than flashy. He designed roads, parking lots, bridges, drinking water, processing and distribution system, sanitary, sewer, and stormwater systems, and more. One of his pet projects I always knew was bridges. That's how I first met him. He did the North Union Street Bridge. That's how I met Tim the first go-around. Most of it is used every day without fanfare and only noticed until it's gone or under repair. As a passionate skier, one of the highlights of Mr. Lodge's tenure was the rebuilding of Hickory Hills Recreation Area. The ambitious $5 million project included infrastructure improvements, new snowmaking equipment, enhanced Nordic trails, and of course, the brand new Hickory Lodge, which has preserved the history of this beloved institution, which, while allowing it to serve the community for generations to come. An engineer to the core, Tim has worked hard to keep abreast of the most up-to-date technologies and design philosophies while also respecting tried and true methods. Under his leadership, the engineering department has been recognized as Department of the Year multiple times. In 2022, that distinction was particularly well-deserved as the city was in the midst of rebuilding multiple critical bridges. I would say all 6 of them critical bridges. Was that about right?
That's the number.
Okay. In special tribute, therefore, this document is signed in recognition of Timothy Lodge for his contribution and service to our community, and in particular, the city of Traverse City. May the entire Traverse City region know of our appreciation of his expertise to this community and our great city on this 21st day of August 2023. So they have to type this bigger for my eyes now. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Is he not going to speak?
Well, there won't be really a speech. I just have to extend my appreciation. I'm only as good as the team that I represent. So my team is the people that get things done. They make the corrections when I have an idea. Sometimes that's maybe not the best. They help me keep on the straight and narrow path. So I appreciate my team more than you know, and I appreciate this recognition. And I was trying to avoid it, but I guess it's unavoidable. So, and then Hallmark Project tonight, the Senior Center. What a way to go out. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Consent calendar, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission, and such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. 1, consideration of approving the minutes of August 7th, 2023 and August 14th, 2023 meetings of the City Commission. 2, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the transfer of ownership of Class C and SDM liquor licenses with outdoor service banquet facility and dance entertainment permits from the Next Food Group LLC to Identity Brewing Company LLC, in consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the related registration, allowing the operation of the licenses and permits at 108 South Union Street, Traverse City, Michigan, 49684. 3, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the transfer of ownership of an original 550 Resort Class C license with Sunday AM/PM sales, catering, dance entertainment, and outdoor service permits currently held by Case Credit Union to Georgina's Fusion LLC, in consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the related registration, allowing the operation of the licenses and permits at 531 West Front Street, Traverse City, Michigan, 49684. 4, consideration of declaring 2 Wacker-Neuson articulating loaders and 2 Pronovist snowblowers surplus so they may be sold at auction, in consideration of authorizing a purchase order for 2 2023 Wacker-Neuson WL28 articulating loaders with 48-inch snow blowers for use by street divisions. Sorry, skipping
Madam,
over it.
you did that much better than I would have ever touched it, so there you go.
5, consideration of authorizing a 3-year agreement for elevator service examination and maintenance agreement for elevators at the Hardee's parking structure and Old Town parking structure. 6, consideration of authorizing an agreement related to the mural on Bryant Park bathroom building as recommended by the Arts Commission, and consideration of approval of an expenditure not to exceed, and it should be $8,000, not $7,000, for costs associated with installation, signage, and promotion. 7, consideration of authorizing an out-of-scope agreement for the management of the project in connection with the Digester 5 cleaning and condition assessment at the wastewater treatment plant. 8, consideration of authorizing an out-of-scope agreement for the design, engineering, and construction management of the project in connection with the rooftop solar PV and battery storage project at the wastewater treatment plant. 9, consideration of authorizing a purchase order for the replacement tasers for the police department. 10, consideration of enacting an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which would make housekeeping changes to the fire prevention code and update section reference numbers. 11, consideration of authorizing an amendment to the contract for consulting services for the inventory and condition assessment project in connection with the Con Foster collection. 12, consideration of adopting the amended resolution establishing the Human Rights Commission to add an ex officio student member. 13, consideration of adopting a resolution accepting a $205 grant from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for replacing bathroom facilities at West End Beach, which commits the city to providing a $200,500 match and authorizes the mayor and city clerk to execute the related agreement. 14, consideration of adopting a corrected motion for West End mixed-use development housing, retail, and parking. 15, consideration of authorizing an amendment to the agreement for aerial imagery services to provide for a one-time winter flyover for additional imagery.
Okay. Does anyone have an item they would like to have removed from the consent calendar from the commission?
3 and 11.
3 and 11. Okay. Anyone from the audience that'd like to have an item removed from consent calendar?
Item 6, item 13, and item 14.
Excuse me? 13 and
14.
13 and 14. Thank you. Okay.
Item 8.
Item 8. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Happy to entertain a motion?
Move that we accept the consent calendar as amended.
Okay. We have a motion and support. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Okay, the first item to be removed was item number 3, which was a consideration of, wrong page. Consideration to adopt a resolution authorizing the transfer of ownership of an original 550 Resort Class C license, transfer currently held by Case Credit Union to Georgina's Fusion, which will be located at 531 West Front Street. You had this pulled, Mr.
Yes.
Mitchell? Mr. Treadwell?
And this is nothing about the applicant in specific, but it is a matter of principle, I would say, that in October of 2021, after extensive discussion and public engagement, we passed the healthier drinking culture study. That was almost 2 years ago, and in that we listed some immediate action steps, including, I can read from it, to update the Traverse City ordinances and the local liquor license permit process to create objective and clear criteria for the desired number, type, and location of liquor licenses, including at the neighborhood and corridor level. That had a completion date target of December 2022, which has come and gone. So far, there has been no movement at the level of this board to update those processes, and I haven't seen action from the DDA to bring those updates to us as they would inform for their own area. Now, this area might be a place that could benefit from another restaurant with a liquor license, but without having done the requisite study to identify where those places in Traverse City are, I cannot in good faith approve this.
Okay. Appreciate that. All right. Any other comments from the city? Yeah.
I just wanted to address Mitch's comments fairly, that we had talked about at the end of 2022, having that date out there. I know Richard and I met with the previous city manager to kind of try and get a study session rolling for that. It's part of mapping out the year, and with some of the changes and the other priorities that have snuck up, I think it did get lost. So it's a good reminder that we do still need to go back to the healthier drinking culture, that now that part and several others come to us. The DDA, we did the study, but we are the ones who have to pass any of the ordinances that would apply here. So that comes to us to do the work in the coming months.
So I agree with what you're saying, but I have a hard time holding up this particular venture. It has already opened with its food service and is waiting for this piece. How long would we ask this person to wait?
It will be a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, for me, it's a good reminder that that needs to happen, but I'm not willing to hold up this particular transfer.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or concerns?
Motion.
Before I open it for the public, I'll be glad to entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that the resolution recommending approval of the request from Georgina's Fusion LLC, Gregory Anthony Craig, to transfer to it a Class C original F550 resort liquor license with Sunday sales, AM, PM, catering, dance, entertainment, and outdoor service permits be adopted, and that the city clerk be authorized to issue a liquor license registration to Georgina's Fusion LLC for it to operate such licenses and permits at 531 West Front Street, Traverse City, Michigan, 49684.
Support.
We have a motion and support. I'll open up for any thoughts or concerns from the public. Okay, seeing none, I bring it back to the commission. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Treadwell?
No.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
No.
Commissioner Colbert?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. 4-2. So does it pass?
That's
Yes.
a vote.
Okay, we're not spending money. Okay.
Mhm.
Motion passes. Okay, next item that was removed, Ms. was you by, it was number 11, that dealt with consideration authorizing an amendment to the contract for consulting service for the inventory and condition assessment to include the Confoster collection.
Yes, this I am not opposed to, but considering the Confoster collection is not as publicly accessible as it had historically been, it doesn't have to be done now, but I would like some reporting of the current status of that collection and how the work that we are contracting for is progressing.
And we are lucky because we have someone in the audience tonight who could do that for us. Mr. Putnam, would you like to speak? Yes, thank you. No?
Okay, fine.
You want to,
Yes. I will read the,
well, this is not,
He's
how long are you
consulting.
going to be?
Yes. How
Because
long?
normally we would not,
About 3 minutes.
okay, thank you. All right.
Thanks, Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. I may not agree with you on every issue, but having been on the other side of this lectern, I appreciate your service to our community. Thank you very much. A lot of people don't even know the Con Foster collection exists. I think I've talked to the general public on the streets and such. But my personal history with this collection goes way back, and Marty Coburn's and my interactions basically when I first joined the commission. He indicated that that a number of years ago, during the transfer from the Con Foster building to its present location, there had been some theft of artifacts. In the process, several city employees were fired. Now, the artifacts were transferred, of course, to the 6th Street location where the Carnegie Library is. My son and daughter-in-law, both with PhDs in history and dual master's degrees in museum studies, were asked for their assessment of the collection. After Mr. Coburn allowed them to view the artifacts, they both agreed the collection was at that time safely secured and in fair to good condition, although they both were concerned about the collection's future. The Native American Graves Protection Repatriation Act of 1990 issues have been met. Several sets of human remains determined to be Native American returned to various tribes, as along with certain items considered sacred by those tribes. So that collection has been satisfied in that regard. What remains is the final inventory and cataloging of the remaining items and ultimately the disposition of the collection. Rather than languishing in obscurity, we should consider options to ensure the general public has the opportunity to view this historical collection. While I support the extension or modification of this contract, could we at least get a status report on the most important collection, this most important collection, and what plans, if any, exist for its preservation? I don't know if Mrs. Beamsley is here or not, but certainly I would like to see where we are to this point, because we've been almost 2 years into this project. And one of the things we have to be concerned about, of course, is we can't just say that that artifact doesn't belong in Traverse City in the sense of the collection, because no matter where it came from, and Con Foster and his wife traveled all over the U.S. basically to get these items, it was here for a while, and it still is here. Therefore, it becomes part of this region's legacy. So I'd really like to see the Commission stay on top of this. I support this extension of the contract, and I hope we can come to some conclusions so the general public can see this collection. Because what I've seen from it in a distance has been very, very interesting items.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. But that's, I thought
I'm
that was,
sorry. Yeah, I
there was
thought
a
you started.
different, this is a desire to have the museum opened again and have the collection out there, which is not happening anytime that I understand in the near future. However, the collection is safely stored at the Carnegie Building in different parts of the building, including climate control rooms for certain artifacts that have to be there. If we really wanted to know where all this was, we needed Penny Hill. She was the expert in this, and they did most of it. I don't believe all the indigenous indigent folks are, or not indigent, but the Indian tribes that have pieces, not all of that collection has been dispersed, and there's a very specific process that has to be gone through, and there's still a number of it. We'll try to get this commission report, and I'm sure that there's stuff in the assistant city manager's office that we can get that out to you, but meanwhile, we need to continue with this.
Mr. Lewis?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Basically, I'd also like to see some elements of the project being planned out beyond just counting it. I would like to see if there's any...
Excuse me?
I would like to see the items displayed eventually, which right now
Well-
they're secure and they're safe. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I think we have to look at the aspect of what we have. A lot of our communities in the area, smaller communities, have museums.
This is not a discussion. You've had your 3 minutes, sir.
All right,
Thank you. You
Thanks,
know the
Richard.
rules as well as I do.
I do. I
Okay.
thought I'd break them just a little
Yeah,
bit.
that's another whole topic in itself of whether we're going to do that, because for a number of years, the collection had been moved over to the over to the other building, over to the Carnegie building, and it was done for a number of years, but I know that sometime back in the early 2000s or the early, like 2010, the Historical Society did not have the necessary funds to continue their operation, and the city wasn't prepared to grant the additional extension of that. So it all went into storage to make sure it was safe. So the city has that obligation, and we've been meeting that. The disposition of the articles, I think there is a complete inventory and a listing of them, but but we can find out where, from the manager, you can get that when you can. So, but I'm sure there's a report like that Penny has in her office. So, okay. All right. Meanwhile, we have a consideration of moving this forward to the agreement. So,
I'd like to move that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute an amendment to the contract with Teresa Beamsley in an amount not to exceed $23,500 for inventory and condition assessment services, such contract subject as to its substance by the interim city manager and its form by the city attorney, with funds available in the city manager's budget.
Support.
okay. All right. Anybody else from the public like to have a question or concern?
Okay, I'm going to read the rules before we get
Yeah,
too far
we got
ahead.
okay.
We ask that you state your name and
Hang on.
address
Stay
and
right
indicate
there.
if you are a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we request that all language be respectful to all parties.
So has there been any thought of, after the Con Foster has been inventoried, to where maybe instead of going for a full museum, having a virtual museum to tag those items and put it on a website, sharing that history? I mean, it's cheaper than rent downtown. So thank you.
Okay. Also, folks, when you're up here at the podium and you're speaking, try to speak more into the mic, because I could barely hear you on that one. I don't think my hearing's gone that bad yet. It's working on it, but not yet. So make sure we get into the mic, because if I can't hear you, I know the public probably can't hear you at home. Okay.
Richard, can I just make a quick point? Just for people who are interested, first of all, let me start by saying the Historical Society has no active plans right now to start a museum, but I know a couple people on the board, and that topic has bubbled up a few times recently. So if anyone is interested in that topic, I would say they'd probably welcome new members to join their group, and probably new members to join that discussion. So I would just put it out to the public. It hasn't been dropped by everyone and walked away from. I think it's a logistics issue, so if anybody's interested in getting involved, I would reach out to the Historical Society.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and support. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion passes. Next item is number 13, which
Six.
was,
6 was pulled.
6 was pulled.
I'm sorry, what was it?
6 was
Six.
the next one pulled? It was 6, 13, and 14,
Oh, I didn't hear number 6. I apologize.
and then also 8.
Huh?
6,
Oh, I know,
13,
I've got
14.
8.
Okay,
I didn't catch the 6.
Yeah.
All right, we have, that's those consideration, authorizing an agreement related to the mural on the Bryant Park bathroom, as recommended by the Parks and Rec Commission and by the Arts, by our Arts Commission. Mr. Buckhalter, you asked to have this pulled.
Rick Buckholder, 932 Kelly Street. I'm a Traverse City resident. I had this pulled because I'm not happy with what they're doing. That bathhouse has been around for a very, very long time, and when I lived on the Old Mission Peninsula years ago, I used to stop and swim there every day after work. And it has charm. It is unique because of the round windows. And I don't object to the idea of putting artwork on the building or around it, but this is brick. It's porous brick, and you're not putting panels on it. You're not doing small pictures. You're painting the entirety of 3 walls.
I took the trouble to go down to the Arts Commission, which I'd never been to, and told them if I have seen no evidence that you've gone out to the public who use the building, who live in the neighborhood, and see if they're happy with that kind of change in the appearance of the building. And I pointed out the Art Commission, if you painted panels and attached them to the building and people didn't like them, you could take them off. But what you're doing, you're painting the actual porous brick. And if the public doesn't like it when there's new commissions involved going down the road, there's no way you can get it off. So my objection is not whether I personally like the artwork or not, because I've seen it. Is this an appropriate place for it, number one? But more importantly, why didn't all the boards that were mentioned in the memo, why didn't they ever consult the public who would use it? I think that's wrong. So I see all these things going on wrong with all, the parks are like under attack by the commissions. I mean, Hull Park, you're going after the volleyball court park. At this meeting, you're going after the Clinch Park grassy area, the volleyball court grassy area. You're going after
Stay
Sunset
focused on the
Park,
subject,
and
please.
you're going on Senior Center Park.
Please stay focused on the subject.
So my point is, including the Senior Center Park, not the Senior Center building, when you make major changes to a city park, you ought to get the public engaged before you take action. Thank you.
Okay. Heard that?
Yes, this did come to the Parks and Rec Board on which I sit and was passed unanimously. We, on the Parks and Rec Commission, have a member that lives directly adjacent to this park, and she was able to vouch for her neighbors in saying that it did have community support.
Thank you. All right.
As a former Arts Commission member too, I will note a time I can very distinctly point to, and probably much of the public remembers. These packets are all public, and the art being submitted is made public. And when people see art they don't like, they will form Facebook groups that even on Easter Sunday will suddenly have 6,000 members. So the public can be very engaged and has every right and has a lot of access to these drawings and mural designs. And we definitely welcome input at every stage. Those are all public meetings, and we'd love to see more people show up at them. So with that, I'll make the motion that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the necessary documents with Catherine Gordon for the mural of the Bryant Park restroom building as generally outlined in the August 7th, 2023 communication from the Downtown Development Authority Chief Operating Officer with the cost associated with this authorization not to exceed $7,000.
8,000.
8,000.
Oh, 8,000, sorry. I was corrected in the one, but I didn't do it. And to come to the Public Arts Trust, to come from the Public Arts Trust Fund with such documents subject to its approval as to its substance by the interim city manager and in their form by the city attorney.
Support.
Okay. We have a motion and we have support. Okay. Anyone else from the public that would like to address this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay. Next is item number 13, which was consideration adopting a resolution accepting $250,000 a $250,000 grant from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for the purposes of constructing a new restroom by the volleyball courts, as well as replacing the restroom that is down by the West End Beach. Yes, sir, Mr. Buckhalter?
What bothers me about this is people in Traverse City take pride and they're intensely interested in what happens on everything on the bayfront. The entire time this proposal has been under consideration, you have no idea what it's going to look like. You had a photograph of something similar. This is going to be a prefabricated building, both of them, both bathhouses. They may turn out to be absolutely gorgeous, but I kind of doubt that's going to happen. So my question is, why are you proceeding with this when you have no idea what it's going to look like, both of them? One on West End Beach, the other one by the volleyball court, and they're going to be there for a very long time, full front and center in view of the public and visitors for decades to come, and you haven't bothered to find out what the vendor's going to produce in a prefabricated bathhouse. You have no idea what it's going to look like. And what are you going to do if it's just dog ugly? Right, that's a serious question. If these are dog ugly, how much money would it cost to replace them in some future commission? I mean, you ought to ask the question, why there's a chance to do something about it. Thank you.
In this particular case, we're not awarding a bid for the bathhouses. We are accepting a grant to build bathhouses. And so that will be put out for bids, and we'll get to see those bids and the designs and everything when they come back to us. Yes.
But I can say that, again, as a member of the Parks and Rec Commission, when we submitted the grant application, it was with a specific bathhouse design in
Yep.
place so that we could have good estimations. And not only was I able to look at that in a paper catalog, but I was also able to look at pictures of the exact make and model of bathhouse that we are essentially ordering installed in other parks in other cities.
Yeah.
So we do have a
This was
clear
also-
picture of what it
and
looks like.
When we submitted the grant, this also came before the city commission. We did see designs on that also, so it's all been made very public. Okay, I'll be glad to entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that the city commission consider formally accepting this
Mm,
mission.
up,
Whoops,
top of
not
page.
that one.
Top of the memo.
There?
Hmm?
That the resolution accepting?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to move that the resolution accepting the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant for Bayfront restroom amenities be adopted.
Support.
Okay. We have a motion to support. Anyone else from the commission from the public like to address this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay. We had number 14, which is consideration of adopting a corrected motion for the West End mixed-use development, housing, retail, and parking. Mr. Buckhalter?
I have an objection to this being called the West End Mixed-Use Development when everybody knows this is about a $30 million plus parking deck for the benefit of downtown merchants and property owners. So if you're going to do business with the residents, you ought to tell them, even if the DDA board and director changed the name of it, when you're talking about this in front of Traverse City residents, you ought to make it clear on every discussion you have here and going forward that this is about a $30 million plus parking deck that has little benefit to Traverse City residents. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that the mayor and city clerk.
Okay. Let me just be clarified. We've already approved this once before. In fact, we approved sometime back in July. The only difference here is we're acknowledging that where the funds are coming from, which is from the Downtown Authority's TIF 97 budget. But this is already being approved and brought before us a month ago. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
That the mayor and city clerk execute a two-phase contract with the Downtown Development Authority and Fishbeck Incorporated and Cornerstone Architects in the not-to-exceed amount of $1,591,141, with Phase 1 services being schematic design services costing $383,570, and Phase 2 services being construction design services costing $1,201,571, with the contract to be structured so that only Phase 1 is authorized immediately, with the city manager to execute a notice to proceed with Phase 2 only if related referendum petitions are not filed regarding bond issuance, with such contract subject to approval as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney, with Phase 1 costs to come from the Downtown Development Authority's TIF 97 budget, and further, that the motion adopted July 17th, 2023 be rescinded.
Support.
Okay, we got a motion and support. Okay, anyone else from the public like to address this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Next is item 8 and deals with the installation of a rooftop solar PV. What does PV mean? I forgot. What does PV mean?
Photovoltaic.
Okay. Excuse me?
Photovoltaic.
That's right.
Right. And battery storage project. That's why they use PV. Everything else I couldn't pronounce anyway. So
I'm
there you go.
impressed Nate got it even
All
faster
right.
than I could.
Mr. Tweetmeyer, you had this item removed?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
For the record, Bill Tweetmeyer. I reside at 300 East Bay Boulevard North, Traverse City. I'm a city resident. The reason why I had this pulled is there are a few points that I would like you to consider. First and foremost, if you take a look at this little handout that I provided, there's a copy on the front page. It's a copy of the front page of the master sewer agreement. What I want to point out is that this is actually a regional wastewater treatment plant, that we are not the sole responsibility for all of the expenses. So what concerned me is we got a generous grant from the Michigan Public Service Commission for this project, about $1.6 some million, but there's still a shortfall of about $176,500, and that shortfall actually should be shared by the surrounding townships, not just the city's sole responsibility and obligation. And furthermore, the city is already providing in-kind services as part of this project of $62,974, and that's part of the application to the Michigan Public Service Commission for this grant. And that too should be a shared cost by the townships. My second point, in looking at this little handout that I provided, if you go to page 3, I was quite surprised that the costs have ballooned quite significantly from the presentation that was given back in December at the study session. And that's due in part because of the battery energy storage system. It was kind of a last-minute addition to the grant. And if you look at page 3 of this handout, I highlighted the pertinent sentence here in the grant application. During the daytime, the solar arrays will produce electricity that will be used on site for operating the wastewater treatment plant. If the solar arrays produce more electricity than the on-site loads, the extra electricity will be fed to the BESS for use at a later time. I think that's a big if, because if you look at the next page, this was a handout that was provided at the study session. It's a graph, and it shows the usage at the wastewater treatment plant. And you'll see in blue that that usage is significantly higher than the solar energy that would be produced from the solar array. Now, one could assume that maybe during the summertime, well, there are probably days that we probably have a little more solar that will be in excess of what's needed at the plant. So I went the extra effort, and if you follow the next page, this was also a handout in the study session. You'll see that the system size is 434 kilowatts. The wastewater treatment plant, and I wrote this down below, uses approximately 5,048 megawatts of electricity annually, or about 5,048,000 kilowatt hours total. So if you take 365 days per year multiplied by 24 hours per day, that equals 8,760 hours. You take that 5,048,000 kilowatt hours divided by the total number of hours, you come out with 576.25 kilowatt hours of usage each hour. Now, what concerns me is if you follow the last page, I highlighted part of the grant application. This additional capital cost is $1,067,000 for this battery energy storage system. So why are we increasing this cost for a system that potentially might not even be used? I would hate to see us purchase this system, get it installed, and then find out that it's unusable because all of the electricity generated by the solar array is actually being used by the wastewater treatment plant. So that gets me to my final point. No discussion or no provision has been made for the replacement of this system. The state has been very generous in providing this grant, but 15, 20, 25 years down the road, this system will probably start degrading and will need to be replaced. Well, it's fine that you get an upfront amount of money to purchase this system, but what are you going to do when the system needs to be replaced? No provision has been made for that, and I would suggest that that discussion needs to be taking place with the County Board of Public Works. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Nate, what do you think? Should we go back and do some more research on this?
Well, it's hard to argue with what Mr. Tweetmeyer has presented, and we've actually been talking about some of these very same questions back when the grant, or excuse me, when the MPSC came back with the reduced grant amount. We had the discussion about, well, do we cut back on the batteries potentially, because that was a big piece of the total project. And as we found, that potentially we would have lost the grant, because they were approving the grant based on this design and all the information, including some of what's in here that the MPSC reviewed. I was looking at some stuff today, actually. I was interested to find that we're not the only wastewater plant that's putting in for something, so I have to look into that more. But anyways, the point being, these are valid concerns. I think the question is, to delay this, we potentially have to consider the possible loss of the grant, which, that's a commission decision on, what is the right thing to do, right, in this particular case. I've started thinking about a little bit and talking with our our public light and power utility director about some other potential different ideas. But again, looking at our grant application, things like that, and given where we're at in this process, it's probably, and I say probably because I can't tell you, yes, it is, it's probably too late to go back and try to change and look at a different site or what have you. But if the city commission would like us to kind of evaluate other options or to investigate these things further, we can certainly do that. It's going to be a city commission prerogative.
I would like for you, I think you ought to do that, especially on the battery. If we're going to be putting in batteries and we're not going to need a battery, I don't know, so. And I'm not an expert in this, so.
Well, I guess I would speak to two things. One is, though it is not explicit in our policy we just passed a couple weeks ago, this is the intention of our policy that we passed a couple weeks ago. It's not a new repair or however we defined it, but this is the intention of it, is that we would have batteries at all facilities like the wastewater treatment center. I also understand what Mr. Tweetmeyer is saying, but I think that as we continue to replace parts and update and move forward with projects like this, I think we're going to see a shift in the energy that we reap as we update equipment. And I think that this just goes for the $176,000. I'm not one to waste money, but I think there's far more coming quickly where the battery is going to be helpful, including not just for the grant money, but also that I think we're going to end up in a couple of years having the same conversation and kicking ourselves for not having bought it now as part of this grant.
That was going to be my question. I'm not sure if that's what you just said, that there would future projects be able to use these batteries?
Could you pick them up and move them elsewhere? Theoretically, yes, you could.
Or plug in, leave them where they're at, let that solar array feed it and have something else feed it?
Yeah, if there was other renewable sources at that site, yes, you could tie that in, but there's going to be a certain capacity. There'd be certain controls that would have to be updated. This is one of those projects that was kind of in place or well on the road when I first got here. I have had multiple discussions with Director Ekron about this. Again, it's, kind of to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, is, okay, if we look and we ask questions and not stall's the wrong word, but how does that impact our possible grant standing, and does that impact potential future asks with the MPSC? So those are all things you want to consider, but really it's a judgment call that you all have to make. He raises valid questions.
Can we fill those batteries from another source, like essentially charging them when the electricity is cheaper?
Oh, pulling
And
it from the
then use
grid?
it-
Yes.
Yeah, and then use it when it's, as the primary source when it's expensive.
Mark, I
Randy?
might have you come up here because I think that's part of one of the
Yes.
conversations is to,
Brandy's here too, if we need her.
yeah.
She's in the corner.
And
Brandy's
Mark,
here?
I'm
I
right
can
here.
see her, but probably everybody else can't, because
No,
I
I
made
don't
that
think,
mistake.
no,
when
it's
we did
not
this morning.
Brandy.
Oh, I thought she was back there. Sorry, I was not, I'm blind.
I say, I didn't think she was here.
No.
Hi, Mark Hoggard, Jacobs.
Oh, no.
Not a solar engineer,
Saw the
but
hair.
I'm gonna do my best to answer questions or
Play one on
provide
TV.
clarity. And if I can't, then we'll certainly get the right people here. But so my understanding, speaking with our engineers, is that the battery system could shave peak hour cost energy, feeding back during the peak hours between 10 and 4. And some of that, it could also be, some of the things they'll be looking at when they're doing the design is running clusters of equipment off the battery during power outages, and also during the peak hour. So the battery system itself couldn't run the plant by any means, but it could run a piece of equipment or a cluster of equipment at the facility. I don't know if that clarifies anything.
It helps
Mhm.
to an extent. I mean, because I recall reading one of the reports where it's talking about the peak shaving,
Peak shaving,
peak
yep.
shaving.
Yep.
I think is the load shaving, something like that is the technical term. I have a question
Yeah,
down here.
and I know that, a big component of it was for Traverse City Light and Power to see how that interacts with their system, to gain experience working with a battery system as these things are becoming more and more popular. Also the fire department and
Mhm.
Okay.
Got one more question down here.
Yes.
Amy, oh, sorry.
Mitch, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I commend Art Krieger and the Jacobs staff for identifying and pursuing this grant. Though I can look at our wastewater treatment plant and say, compared to our water purification plant, I see less flat roof space or green grass that it would seem feasible to put up solar panels, but I'm not a solar engineer either, and they pursued a grant for this specific location, and we got awarded a grant for this specific location. And the purpose of the grant is not just to generate electricity to run the plant, which, yes, it does, but the batteries improve resiliency in the overall system, and while they could theoretically be moved elsewhere, if they are next to a large piece of our infrastructure that we need to be running 24/7, it seems reasonable to me. And sure, it might not be able to keep the whole plant running in the event of a power outage, but if it can keep some equipment running, then it allows us to better manage the power loads that we would be facing in those outage situations and reduce the need for generators or other supplemental power.
If I remember correctly, we already knew that if you did every place on site that you could put a solar panel in, it would never be enough to generate all the power we needed. So generators are going to continue to be needed there, and we have one. So as it relates to the replacement costs, with all due respect, Mr. Tweetmeyer, I understand what you said, but most of the time when we got to replace stuff, we just go out and figure out how we're going to do it. We don't fund depreciation in most of our utilities, so not like we do in the automobile stuff side, in the garage side. I understand. So I don't have a game plan, and we'll have to work out the shared costs with the township that's in there. So
Yes,
if that's required, or if this belongs to us, and we'll figure it out. So
yes, that was my next question, was
so we'll
that
let you guys do
I
that.
don't want to hold up the process, because if we don't connect with getting this grant, I don't see this project as feasible at all.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
would like to, whether it's possible for this or in future grant opportunities or upgrades that we do in the future, look into cost sharing with the townships that also pay into the system.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll open this up well, we need a motion so that I can open it up for public.
I'll make the motion that the city commission approve the an out-of-scope agreement with Jacobs in an amount not to exceed $257,892 for design, engineering, instruction, management services for the rooftop solar photovol. Can I have Nate say that one for me?
Photovoltaic.
Thank you. I've read it a bunch, never had to say it. And battery storage project at the Traverse City Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Do we have a support?
Support.
Okay. So one of the reasons why I decided not to be a commissioner is that so I didn't have to read things like
Smart.
photovoltaic, you know. I
Hey,
would have,
that was great.
Oh, God. Move on. All right. Anyone else from the public like to address this?
Rick Buckholder, 932 Kelly Street. I'm a Traverse City resident. I totally agree with Mr. Tweetmeyer on his points, and I had made similar points to Mr. Krieger, the utility director. So this comment is part of the whole project rather than what's on your table tonight. When this whole project was proposed kind of out of the blue to go green, the idea is to put photovoltaic cells on the top of between 15 and 19 buildings. Most of these buildings were built in the early 1930s. So my question to Art Krieger was, Art, can they support the weight, including the weight of some winter snows? And he says, think about this as you're moving forward with more money now. He said, we won't know until the engineers have analyzed the roof weight-bearing capacity of each and every of the buildings. Now, what I put before you right now is before you move more money around with a project that's getting more and more odd as it progresses, find out what the engineers know, because if they can't support, if the roofs of each building can't support the weight, you start subtracting the electricity production capacity, which goes right back to what Mr. Tweetmeyer said. This is looking worse and worse and worse the farther along it gets as more facts come out. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion to support. All those in favor? Yes.
Wait, I do. I'm pretty conflicted here. I don't feel like any of us are experts. I would love to hear from Brandy Ekron, or perhaps Amy knows more.
Yeah,
from sitting
sorry,
on
I
that
misjudged
board.
a ponytail in the crowd and thought I
wish
saw
that
her.
Tim Werner I wish that Tim Werner were here.
Well, Tim
our
can
engineer.
Tim's the engineer, so I can't
Yeah.
talk engineer. I'll be honest about that. But the off-peak conversation that we were having is also true, that how you direct, I don't want to say this, not everything is controlled. The ions aren't all controlled. Like, we're going to pull things on the side, from the solar panels that are there. They're going to get fed in. But how we feed that into the battery, there's going to be some ways that we can manage that during peak and off-peak times, as was explained. And honestly, Jacob's probably explained it better, sorry. But that's going to be a tool we have to use, I guess is what I would say in its most basic. I think that with this grant, what we're getting with it, I would how do I put this nicely? I would be very disappointed. I think if people realized how much this would cost in the long run, that we didn't do this to get the grant, we'd be out a lot more than $170,000. And it's something that I feel like we're moving towards anyways, as we talk about getting more of our utilities independent. We're always on a grid, right? We are on a grid. Where we're talking about is if there's failures in the grid, outages, whatever, how can we make that kind of stuff work? And so I think that that's where having this tool is going to help us a lot. And this is the first step. And do we always do everything at the least cost, most efficient? I think our wind turbines will say sometimes we don't, but we also started a good project that way that we were able to build off of. And I really don't think this is going to be that kind of a loss, a monetary loss for us as a city. I think this is something we're going to be able to do a lot with.
And does anybody know, I mean, should it be revealed that the weight bearing doesn't work, what happens then? That it's
Well, you're not doing the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been down this road before putting solar on an older building, and it can be done.
Yeah.
Mark, do you know if that was figured into this when they? Do you know if they did roof load analysis and all that?
No, they haven't done specific.
Is that part of the
but
work that
they've
will be?
We've identified the roofs that can be applied, that can be added to.
Speak up a little bit louder, Mark.
Most of the buildings were built in the 90s, 2000s. Membrane building is a fairly large surface. 2004 that was constructed. One of the larger surfaces are sludge storage tanks, the west biosolids storage tanks. Those are constructed in 85. Those are in good shape, and most likely would support. They'll also look at, if they find that there are areas, we've looked at parts of the plant that are part of the excuse me, CWSRF upgrade that's coming. A lot of those buildings will be reconstructed during that project, so we didn't even look at those ones, knowing that they weren't going to be part of that.
Well, there's two pieces here to your question, Commissioner. One is the condition of the roof that's underneath of it. You don't necessarily want to put brand new solar on an old roof. Two is the wind load, and to address the wind load, at least the project that I was involved with, our trusses were not heavy duty enough, and so to strengthen them, they welded rebar, and that made it work. But that was a part of the cost that we had already planned for with that project. Whether or not there was an allowance in this grant or in the estimates that were done to put this grant, unless Mark can answer it, I can't confidently tell you that that has been figured into this.
And what kind of timeline are we on? And if we push this 2 weeks to get a little more information, does that?
Well, I can. Well, let's ask Mark.
Sure.
Do you know when we have to
Yeah,
have this?
I believe it's December 31st of next year.
Substantial completion.
Yeah.
I can just tell you, just from the discussion I've had and the conversations I've had with Brandy as early or as recent as today, and also from some of what I understand was discussed when this first came forward, my preference would be give us 2 weeks, bring it back at the next regular meeting, and have some of these questions answered, because, you know, it's great to have this grant money. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this is a really great grant, but to me, there's too many big questions that we're not able to answer right now for me to confidently feel good about you moving this forward.
I feel the same.
So,
Okay.
is it safe to say, who made the motion?
Nobody made the motion yet, right?
Someone's read this.
Oh, did I make the motion?
you did.
I can rescind the motion.
Huh?
What? Oh, yeah, that's right, because I can say one of the words. So many fun
y'all-
motions tonight. I can rescind the motion if that's, is that
Okay,
procedurally how that works, or do we
May I
just have to vote it
request that
down?
this be referred to our September 5th meeting for further discussion and try to get some further answers to questions. Any other questions that anybody has here?
If that can still conform with the grant timeline.
Yes,
Yes,
we'll-
it does.
I've got a pretty good handle on the questions, but if there are other questions that the commission has before the 5th, please send them to me directly, and we'll get them into
Try to
the
get it to them
process.
by the end of the week, so they got time to do that. And if Brandy could be here too, that would help us too. It'd be much appreciated if the executive director from Light and Power could be with us.
I'm confused
Yes.
by the
Okay,
consent
thank you.
calendar then.
Bill, thank you for your concerns. Appreciate it. All right. With that, there's been no action taken, and unless we don't need a motion to defer? Okay, it's just been recommended to defer. Okay. That brings us to our old business. We have a presentation by Deputy County Administrator Chris Forsythe and Sarah Bandon of Lakeview Consultants regarding the opioid epidemic task force. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Again, my name is Chris Forsythe. I'm the Deputy County Administrator.
Back in the panel box, is there a way you could turn up the mic on the speaker stand?
Thank you. Thank you, Nate. Good evening again. Chris Forsythe, Deputy County Administrator for Grand Traverse County. I'm here today, hopefully, with Sarah Bannon.
I'm trying.
Okay.
Gotta let me in.
Oh, this is virtual.
There, if not, I can handle it.
Okay, well, I've
All
asked
right.
to enter, so.
I understand you have a busy agenda, so why don't we go ahead and get through this? I'm here tonight to talk about the opioid settlement funds, really give you first an overview of what Grand Traverse County is going to do with the funds. Second, talk about strategies, regardless if it's the county or the city or other local units of government, what we can all do with the funds. And then topic 3 is a short overview of the opioid epidemic task force that the Board of Commissioners has established. Before I get started, I just want to recognize Dr. David McGraham. Dr. McGraham is here in the audience. He is the chair of the county's task force. I also want to recognize our attorneys. Those are Tim Smith with Smith & Johnson, Paul Novak, Weitz in Luxembourg, and Mark Bernstein with the Sam Bernstein Law Firm, which has the same legal team that not only the county engaged, but the city did as well. So thanks to all their hard work. We both organizations are getting a significant amount of dollars from participating in the litigation. Why don't we go ahead and get started? So what we have in the United States is an opioid problem, and there are 3 types: prescriptions, heroin, and fentanyl. And when I refer to fentanyl, I'm referring to illicit or black market fentanyl, which has grown in popularity or use in our country in the last 10 years. I wanted to give you an overview of the data starting at a county level, as well as walk through some state and national trends. So this is national opioid overdoses by age group. And again, what you see starting in 2018 through 2022 is a general increase in overdose. Here's some more national and Michigan data for you. This is overall overdose deaths, statewide as well as nationwide. This chart is actually quite alarming. This takes a much broader view starting in 2000 through 2017. And you'll see the tremendous spike in incidents over the last 10 years, again, coinciding with the rise of fentanyl in our country. This is information I pulled off the city police website. More local information on you related to the type of cases we're seeing at Munson Medical Center, the overdose cases in our county, as well as the deaths, and again, an overall increase of 229% increase in fatalities in Grand Traverse County. So how did we get here? Why do we have a crisis today? And it's really this 3-part analysis. It starts with manufacturers who are dishonest. They lied about the addictive potential of these drugs. There are distributors who are really pushing these drugs in our communities, and there are the retailers, the pharmacies, who are filling invalid prescriptions. So what you start with are patients, somebody who's getting oxycodone because of a medical procedure. They unfortunately become a user. Over time, they just develop substance use disorder, and now they have to turn to the black market, typically heroin or fentanyl. So the county, together with other local units of government throughout the country, including the city, Traverse City, we did file suit against the manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. And through that process, over the course of the last 5, almost 6 years, we were collectively able to hold them accountable. And the cases started to be settled towards the end of 2021 and ramping up through last year. This is a chart just showing settlement amounts that both the state will receive as well as Grand Traverse County will receive. You notice there's a lot of to be determined, there's a lot of question marks, and all amounts are approximate, but the bottom line is Grand Traverse County will receive approximately $5.2 million in settlement funds. I'm sorry, I don't know the amount that the city is getting. And these amounts, it's not like the ARPA funds that we receive. These amounts will be distributed to the local units of government over the next 10 to 18 years. Both Grand Traverse County and the city of Traverse City recently settled with Walgreens. For the county, that was over $600,000 that we're getting, bringing the grand total to just over $5.2 million. Are there going to be more settlements announced? Hopefully, yes, but I can't answer that tonight. So I now want to quickly turn to strategies for spending. So what yes?
I don't know if this is a question that you or Lauren can answer, but I understand that the settlement money issued by state is broken up to county and municipal levels based on factors like number of prescriptions issued, number of opioid deaths in the area, and thus, say, a community that's been harder hit, like Gaylord, is receiving a larger per capita disbursement than Traverse City. But is there any way that those numbers are accounting for movement of people to areas like Traverse City that might offer more other social services so that we can have a larger share of people that have addiction issues than may have initially been here?
Yeah, it's a great question. Unfortunately, I just don't know that granular level of detail of how the funds were distributed. I can tell you, and I'll just go back up a slide, because the county was first in northern Michigan to file a lawsuit, and the city followed shortly within the next 6 months. I believe both the county and city got what's referred to as a litigation bump, and that we saw an increase in the funds because, number one, we did file as a plaintiff, and number two, we filed pretty early on in the litigation.
Thank you.
So when I talk about the strategies for spending, what I'm referring to is the actual document that was incorporated in the settlement agreement. The settlement agreement broke it down into two types: core strategies, which these are considered the preferred strategies, and I've listed them there. I'm not going to read them all to you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the core strategies, as well as approved uses. So if the core strategies are preferred, these are also permitted uses. Perhaps not preferred, but they are permitted. I also want to point out that the uses described in Exhibit E, those are not exhaustive. They're really listed as examples, so there are other uses listed, and I did not give you the complete list as well. I've given you a summary of the core uses and approved uses. So what does this mean for Grand Traverse County? So taking all this data and information and the guidance that we've gotten through the litigation, the Board of Commissioners in June decided to create an opioid epidemic task force. I want to back up and say that this task force is not something that I really came up on my own or anybody at the county came up on their own. We're really following best practices described by the Michigan Association of Counties, Michigan Municipal League, and other stakeholder organizations like Johns Hopkins. So what we're doing is we're really trying to follow the best practices that exist in the state throughout the country. And what we wanted to do is set up a task force that included 9 members, that was made up of a broad group of stakeholders, those involved in substance use disorder treatment, recovery, even those who are impacted or affected, even those who may have suffered from substance use disorder. The task force started meeting in July. We meet again this Wednesday. And the task force decided the first task was to develop a project charter where we can clearly define the goals, and the reason why we're doing this, the goals, the purpose, etc. So we've listed you that information on this slide right here. Again, there's a lot there, and I'm not going to read through it. But I do want to drill down into some of the objectives, which is we're looking at this not so much as how do we spend these funds. We're really looking at it from more of a how do we address the impact of this epidemic in our community. And part of that is how can we do this from a regional approach? How can we engage not only the broad group of stakeholders in our community, but how can we engage our other counties in our region? the city of Traverse City and other local units of government who are impacted as well. Ultimately, what we want to do is work smart and work quick because we know that this problem in our community is not going away anytime soon. So what we've developed is a high-level deliverables that are focused on being transparent. The task force meetings are set. It's a regular schedule, and we comply with the Open Meetings Act. They're data-driven. They rely on best practices. And really, again, what we're trying to do is address the continuum of need in our community and touch on various aspects related to the opioid epidemic response. So again, we thought it'd be good to share with you project milestones to give you a timeline of what we're doing and where we want to go. Basically, what this describes for you is a year-long project. Started in July, we're moving forward. Our next meeting Wednesday, and we'll continue on through the fall into the new year. So here are some of the risks associated with the project. One of the big unknowns that we all face is we just don't know how these funds are going to be dispersed. Again, I looked to ARPA, and the ARPA funds, those were distributed up front in 2 tranches. We don't have that. We don't know exactly when these funds will be dispersed over the course of the next 10 to 18 years, other than we know that they're going to be drawn out over that period of time, and some of them are going to come up front to the communities. And then some of the other issues are, what does the approval process look like, and how do we address the staff shortages that exist in our community? So if we develop a plan, how do we deploy these funds to, say, Munson Medical Center? How are they going to use these funds when they can't hire nurses and other professionals? But at the end of the day, we felt like at the county, it was best that we start working now and we work diligently and we do something. Because if we don't do anything, people are going to suffer. And they are suffering right now in our community. Ultimately, I'm here today not to really ask you to do anything at this point. Really, I'm here today just to raise awareness of what we're doing at Grand Traverse County, invite you to attend our meetings, and eventually, if we can look at, in some way, pooling our resources together with the other counties and other local units of government in our community, that would be the ideal. But again, I'm not asking that tonight. I'm really just sharing information with all of you. So again, this is our ask. If we can, down the road, develop a strategic fund for our area, that would be a home run to us. So with that, I'm helpful to answer any questions, provide further data, get you all further information about what we're doing.
Can I just add on to that real quick?
Yes, please.
So just appreciate the City Commission's time tonight and letting us bring this forward as mostly an FYI. Again, Chris and I are not coming to you with an ask. I just know that my time is coming short, and this is, again, I think, an opportunity. I'm not usually a fan of duplication of efforts, and this is a good example of a regional crisis that the county's already ahead of us. They've already convening the experts on this matter, and if there's any takeaway tonight, is just to consider this and let me know if you would like us to prepare something for a future discussion on possibly participating or joining with the county in this effort. I think they're probably better equipped to administer these dollars than we are. We can certainly pull the number of what we're expecting. We do have programs that would probably be able to benefit from these dollars. But when you look at some of the things that we're dealing with, whether it's overdoses, opioids, I mean, a lot of our homelessness issue is related to this conversation. We've been talking about, how do we address homelessness on a regional level? Again, this is a potential gateway for additional collaborations on challenges that we are facing here in this community. So, again, thank you very much. Would welcome any direction or feedback at this time or at a later date.
And please reach out to me by email. I've given you Sarah's email as well. Unfortunately, she was having technical issues And then we meet again Wednesday at noon on the third floor.
Who is, probably have read it, but who, besides the doctor back here that's on your board, who else is on the board?
Sure. I can give you those names right now. We have Judge Bob Cooney with the 86th District Court. He serves as the vice chair. We have Kathy Tatinen with the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa Chippewa Indians in their Behavioral Health Department. Terry Kelty with Munson Medical Center Behavioral Health Services. Sharice Shively, who works in the Circuit Court Community Corrections Program. Under Sheriff Mike Shea, County Commissioner Lauren Flynn, Paul Lipinski, CEO of Addiction Treatment Services, and Dave Friedman, who is retired, was in this field, and now is a board member of Northern Lakes Community Mental Health Authority.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions?
I have a question, I guess, to have for the next discussion anytime this comes up. I think there's a lot of ways that at least pooling some of our money with the county makes sense. I do have a question, or I am curious, I guess I would say, as we move forward with this, though I know there's some changes going on at the Sheriff's Department, so that's also going to shake out. But some programs we run as a city that the Sheriff's Department doesn't. And is there going to be, is there a need for some of this funding that we do as a city police department that we would want to reserve at least some of the money to fund? I'm not looking for that answer right now, but I think that would be very important in the discussion.
We would agree with that as well.
So is there a reason for us to have some city representation on this task force, or are we being invited to do that?
I think at this time would be, number one, if you can attend and just watch the meeting and ask questions to see if that's something that you'd want to participate in, and certainly we can go back to the Board of Commissioners and then ask if city commissioners or city staff could serve on it as well.
Thank you.
So to be continued.
Okay. Thank you for the update.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Our next item is consideration of approving the conceptual design for the TART Trail Improvements and Extension Project. Okay. You want me to start with Sean?
If that works
Yes,
for you.
please.
Okay. I know we have seen many enumerations of this over in the past. This is our final document that is before us. And probably what's going to head next, as well as I know the DDA board met on Friday, and they've also passed, given approval to this ultimate design. So at this point.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Sean Winter, City Planning Director. We were here in June to provide a broad overview of this project, but we really focused on phase one, that segment from Murchie Bridge.
Speak up.
That section, I feel like Nate Geinzer, I get too close. That section from Murchie Bridge to Senior Center, with that being our priority, so we could go after funding and align it with MDOT's reconstruction in 2024 along that corridor. Since then, we've been working with our team at Progressive AE to finish up the design, which is what we're here to present you with today. We have had this plan before the Planning Commission, the Parks and Rec Commission, and the DDA board this month, all of which approved these plans. Let's see, next up, we're going to have probably new face for many of you presenting from Progressive AE. Her name is Jess Howard. She is a civil engineer with the firm and a resident trail expert. So Jess has been a familiar face to us. She's been with us since the beginning when the project partners were just talking about this as an idea. She led the conceptual plan design effort and is currently served as the project manager for the engineering design component that we'll be discussing today. Real briefly, before she gets started, Julie is just going to reiterate the values that have guided this process and the important connections that we're looking to make.
Thanks, Sean. I'm Julie Clark with TART Trails. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening, and I'm excited to have Jess kind of walk you through what the final design came to be. This came after many public meetings, lots of conversations. But what I'm here to remind us of is why we're here today. This all came about when we got the opportunity to work with MDOT as they were going through with their Grandview reconstruction project. We were not able to achieve all that we wanted to with that project. So in step with the City Commission's approval, we were given the opportunity to work together with the DDA, TART, and the city to try to achieve those things that we weren't able to get out of the Grandview reconstruction project. And that includes significant connections along our bayfront to our parks, to our neighbors, both east and west, and to the south. There's not much to the north, but some gorgeous water and sand that we all want to enjoy this time of year. And that's what this project will do. I also want to point out that MDOT has identified other connections that they will be making that this project will connect to. And that includes trail extension all the way up to Cherry Bend, where Elmwood Township is then planning to connect trail from Cherry Bend all the way interior to their township hall. MDOT is also working on design and engineering of the Garfield Road intersection within the city limits. So instead of maybe being behind the ball on that one, we get to be in front of it. And in fact, MDOT picked up the design for Peninsula Drive that we had proposed all the way to Eastern to use as their baseline. So they're working from that. So we are very excited to be able to help address some of the things that we weren't able to achieve and that the city said was important to ensure that our residents have a great way to access the parks, the bayfronts, their neighborhoods and friends, and our downtown, which right now is rather limited with one connection under Murchie Bridge and Union Street. We will have much better connections with this project, and we're excited to be here before you tonight to answer any questions about the final alignment. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jess Howard with Progressive AE. Jess has been patient, attentive, and has been working with both us and MDOT. So good luck, Jess.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow commissioners. I'm Jess Howard, and it's an honor to be here tonight. I'm happy to provide an update on this design that we've been working on for the last couple years. Just a reminder, refresher of the limits. We are starting on the west end at Division and then heading east along Grandview Parkway until we hit Peninsula Drive and then heading up Peninsula to Eastern. And as Julie mentioned, from Garfield to Eastern, that is the section that MDOT is going to be taking over. And so with that collaboration, getting ahead of the ball this time, including that as part of their design, that's been a great asset. And going to the why, so the why for this project was we have limited widths, sidewalks adjacent to a very busy road. We do have high activity for both pedestrians and bicyclists on this section of trail and sidewalk. And so we were looking at opportunities of how we could accommodate for future use, heavy use and capacity, the aging infrastructure that we do see, and then also addressing that proximity to the road. And then opportunities for improved connectivity. So one of the things that MDOT did achieve with the Grandview Parkway project is the connectivity at East Front Street, crossing Grandview Parkway. There's a signal that's going to be added. There's crosswalks that are going to be added. A better way to connect to get to downtown from that eastern side near Delamar. As part of this project, we had 3 public engagement opportunities for the public to engage. The first one was in February. We had 1 virtual event and 2 in-person events, 1 downtown and then 1 closer to Peninsula. In March, we had the same setup, 1 virtual, 2 in-person, and then in May, we wrapped up with 1 in-person for Peninsula Drive, specific design work. And then as part of the whole team for TART, DDA, and the city, there have been numerous one-on-one conversations, a Peninsula Drive Neighbors Corridor walk that was done. And then as part of our collective team, we also had focus groups to make sure that we were addressing an array of amenities and features that were desired and not missing a beat on what was needed for these areas. So including the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, having that coordination with MDOT, also talking with the Watershed Center of Grand Traverse Bay, talking with Delamar for some key features, as well as the Northwestern Michigan College. go back to that. Some of the values that came out of all of these community engagement was safety, accessibility, and connectivity. So we broke this up into segments of prioritization. And so you saw the stretch from Division to Eastern. That's about 2.5 miles of trail. That's a lot of money to try and do all at once. So we came to the public as well to get feedback as to what makes sense, what should we do now, and also the opportunity of what could we do still with MDOT's projects. So the one that was identified first was from Murchie through Senior Center, which we brought to you last month with the RAP grant application. And so we should hear back in September about that. The next one is Peninsula Drive from Senior Center to Bryant Park. There's no facilities now. And as part of that design, to keep it in the right-of-way, to limit some other issues in design, that would be reconstruct of the road. So shifting the road over a little bit to fit the trail in the right-of-way to limit impacts into people's yards and getting easements. The next trail portion is the South Side Trail of Grandview Parkway from Division to Hall Street. This is another opportunity to coordinate with MDOT's work and have it done kind of simultaneously with their work if we can get funding. The next section would be Peninsula Drive from Bryant Park to Eastern Avenue, and that would be in coordination with MDOT, and they would be doing that design. They should be starting design here any month now. They've acknowledged who their consultant will be. They just haven't started that design yet, but we've had those conversations with them. So it is looking good to have trail and possibly sidewalk incorporated into their design. And then the last connection piece would be from Division to Murchie Bridge. Some of the design features that we talk about is creating improved safety. So as part of that, we would have separated bicycle facilities. There would be pavement markings to allocate where bikes should go, bi-directional, with arrows on the pavement as in addition to signage and wayfinding. And then you'd have a separate pedestrian facility as well. Some of the keynotes in our particular design would be the change of pavement types to also identify who should be where as far as pedestrian versus bicyclists. And then as far as the Delamar site, to pull people away from Grandview Parkway to feel more comfortable and safe, we are introducing the Share the Drive, which in the upper left corner is kind of something that we see here. We see a desire of people being able to interact with the cars and safely still get through, and it'd be safer than being just immediately adjacent to Grandview Parkway. As part of that, we would be slowing the speed down with tabletops and also incorporating trail art and commissions, and then also historical wayfinding, signage and education along the trail. This is for the Delamar piece. This is the piece that's kind of in question, dependent on us getting the RAP grant. So if we get the RAP grant, the pieces in red are what's going to happen with the Delamar site. And then just to kind of show you, the yellow highlighted is what MDOT is planning in their plan right now for 2024. And so there is cooperation with MDOT if we get the grant to just do the removals and not do their proposed work and do the proposed design that we have instead. So leading up to that, what's next is we're going through easement negotiations, additional grant applications for other segments, the phase construction, and then the opportunity for partnership and leveraging funding, and then continued collaboration. And with that, I will open it to any questions you may have.
I said, most of us have seen this. If you've been on the planning commission, you've seen it enough also. In fact, you've seen it there, and I've seen it at DDA. So anyone have any questions? And most of this is what, I don't think a whole lot has changed since we last saw it in June. Sean? I knew you weren't listening. I caught you, didn't I?
Julie's being distracting.
Yeah. Oh, Julie, behave yourself over there. Anyway, so not as much has changed here, except a little bit more fine tuning. So we're hoping for the RAP grant, which we'll hear by the end of
September.
sometime in September.
Yes.
Boy, it's going to be an exciting fall, especially if we authorize number 4 on our items, old business tonight. So thank you very much. Any other questions we may have? I'm going to open this up to the public to see if there's anyone has any really particular comments, because I know you probably would. So, I do have the question as it relates to width. So if you can answer that. Okay. No, go ahead, Mr. Buckhalter.
Rick Buckhalter, 932 Kelly Street. I'm a Traverse City resident. I've been a supporter of TART trails since they've existed. I can't tell you how much I dislike this project. The need concerning the width of this and the fact that the entire waterfront is parkland or open space except for the Delmar. And a lot of it's very, very narrow. There's no demonstrated need. They came up with a factoid that some data center said that 1 million people a year use it. No, they don't. So there's nothing that you can do, but there is a lot that I can do. And one of them is the money. And you've got the DDA using TIF 97 paying for this portion of the park, or the project, excuse me. You cannot spend TIF 97 money outside of the TIF 97 boundary. So if you don't discuss it and come up with an explanation of how you can do that in violation of Public Act 57 of 2018, then you're leaving me no choice. So deal with it. And I'm especially upset because they haven't disclosed where the 15 trees are going to be cut down, because that was part of their drawings. That's in addition to the 30 trees on the Senior Center Park that has nothing to do with the Senior Center building. So most of the trees between Murchie Bridge and the Senior Center's east side are Sunset Park and Senior Center Park. So I'd like to hear an explanation of that, because those are important parks. Senior Center Park's been there since 1930. People used to come up here from Florida to do that. So all this is interrelated between your agenda item right now and the next agenda item coming up. But the only thing I can do other than complain is to say, you got to have the funding, and the funding might get challenged.
Justin Reed, 630 Kaiser Drive, Apartment 1B, Traverse City, Michigan. As for one, the TART trail is used a whole lot. That is one of the aspects of Traverse City, is that as a tourism driver between the state park and people accessing downtown, if they choose to use exercise. It's a safe way to get to downtown, and it being so busy countless times, is having a separated area for the bikes and the pedestrians would be great, because that is especially heavy use from the Murchie Bridge all the way up to Division Street. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Jackie Anderson, 1725 Comanche Street, Traverse City. I'm a resident, and I'm running for City Commission to perhaps join you in the fall.
Let's keep that over here on that side, please.
I have two comments regarding TART, and one is regarding width. I've been reading a lot about the 16-foot width that this is going to be planned for, and like most non-designers, I had a little bit of trouble visualizing that. So I went out, and this afternoon checked out the width of a fully paved alleyway in the Slabtown neighborhood, and I discovered that that was only 1 foot wider than what's proposed for the new TART trail through our parklands. So whenever you're trying to picture this in place, I hope you'll think about a paved alleyway running the width of our parklands from west to east. The other thing I would like to inquire is, what are your criteria for success for this project? Is there a particular return that's expected on this major community investment? Do you expect X number of additional users of the trail? Let's think that through so we know whether it's been successful or not. Thank you.
Good evening, City Commissioners. My name is Jean Dorenzi, CEO of the Traverse City Downtown Development Authority. And first and foremost, thank you for your partnership in this important project on connecting people to place and the amenities, and having the connection to downtown. Specifically for TIF 97, we are a partner with you on this, but only for the TIF funding that is within the TIF 97 district. So we are a partner on the conceptual design, as well as the pieces from Murchie Bridge to where the TIF district ends and starts. So we know the district boundaries as does the city, and our funding would only be utilized within the TIF boundary. Thank you.
Addressing the width question, so along the stretch, there's limited access to parking here. So one of the main ways to enjoy the amenities of the bay, of the park, of the open space is to walk or bike to these areas. And so we're not just planning for today, but we're planning for future. And as Julie mentioned, there are extension plans to Cherry Bend to the west of Division, as well as going up Peninsula. And there's future plans beyond Eastern that we didn't mention that would go up to Center Road, and then even further up, partnering with Peninsula Township for further connection. So bringing more people, more access and connectivity to these areas. So that is one of the reasons why we're planning for the 16-foot wide. Also, standard design is 5-foot wide each direction for bike trails, and then for the city, 6-foot wide sidewalks is standard. There is a section that is wider, and that's mainly in the open space and Clinch Park, where we do see it very heavily populated, and we want to have those separate facilities so that those bike users that are using it can go safely and not have to meander around. Pedestrians that are walking, people with wagons or baby strollers, and they have their own separate spaces. There will be lots of signage. There will be lots of indicators to slow down for crossings and safety improvements. So these are designs that are not just implemented here, they're implemented around the world that we've seen, and we know that they work and improve those safety factors.
So basically, we have a 6-foot wide for pedestrian sidewalk, which we clearly mark either through markings as well as different pavements.
Yep.
Structure. And then we have a 10-foot wide section for bicycles going either direction, just like you would in traffic.
Correct, and there will be pavement markings, so there will be a dash line on that bi-directional so that you know which way you're going. Yeah. And then obviously if you need a pass, you can pass.
Now, if we were to have a bike path on both sides, you would only have a 5-foot wide, and you would have an 11-foot, 6 feet for a pedestrian and bicycle going one way, like with traffic, for 5 feet.
Correct, similar to what's on 8th Street.
But we're only doing this on one side, like we've done on 8th Street.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Oh, please.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor Lewis. I am Jill Sill, and I'm a Grand Traverse County resident. I am in Whitewater Township, so 560 Island View Drive. I am also the Executive Director of Norte Youth Cycling, and Our mission statement is we champion bikes and community. And what I heard tonight is the focus on safety, accessibility, and connectivity. And that is exactly what we do. We are wrapping up our 9th week of summer camp with almost 800 children. And I have not taken a survey, but I think almost every child in our camps traveled this exact area. In a community with, I believe, 34 city parks and about 10 county parks, we need to be able to access those in a safe way, that we are connected, that's accessible. And I believe this plan has had opportunities for a lot of community input, engagement from the community, has been carefully planned out. I'm not a city planner, I'm not an MDOT employee, but I feel that the care that has been taken by TART, MDOT, and those community engagement sessions is resulted in a plan that's pretty great. And as Julie said, you know, we're not getting everything that we want. It's not perfect. Most things aren't, but I think that we need to value the highlights of this plan, the connectivity that it brings, and the access that it brings to our community. During National Cherry Festival, Norte parked over 2,000 bicycles at our bike valet. And so you can imagine the people that are using our waterfront, accessing our waterfront by bicycle and by foot, which we all see every single day. And I know Cherry Fest is an anomaly. We don't have that kind of traffic here all the time. But to make sure that traffic is safe and accessible, you can pass someone on a stroller, you can have the Traverse City Track Club boat go by, you can have a Norte slow roll go by. These are just some of the many users that are here on our bayfront, and I can guarantee Norte riders will be using this every day in the summer. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. They would like for us to give our support to this, conceptual designs, and so they could be moving forward. So you have a motion there that's in front of you. Would like to consider that.
I'll make the motion just a second, but I just had a quick question for Jess.
Okay.
All the 8th Street discussion between how they're delineating everything to, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be good, all is very reminiscent and ringing bells right now. So I did want to ask, how are these going to be delineated? Is that going to be like built into the paving, like kind of like we did on 8th Street, or is this a painting job every year? I'm just curious about how that's going to be done.
Sure. So the bicycle facility will be asphalt,
Okay.
and then the pedestrian will be concrete. Where they're shared, there will be signage that will tell you when you neck down to 12-foot sections, and it's completely shared. There will be pavement markings, kind of like what we showed in one of the photos. Those, depending on the material type that we choose for the pavement markings, it could be, you know, they have to be redone every year or every few years. We're also looking into some other more unique elements for the trail, such as kind of like a symbol that may glow in the dark in the evening too, to also help delineate those different spaces as well.
Great, that's the general that I was looking for. I think having the 2 different materials to start is even just a great place. Yeah. So with that, I'll happily make the motion that the Tart Trail Improvement and Extension Project conceptual designs as included with the August 21st, 2023 regular meeting packet materials be approved.
We have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any more questions from the public? We've already had that open, so. And thank you for your explanation on the width. That does help, because if we were to measure the other way, we would have had a 16-foot sidewalk and probably a 6-foot sidewalk and 10-foot pass. But because we had 2 sides, we were able to do it differently. Okay, I can see how that works. Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Good luck for the next phase of all this. The next item we have up is consideration of authorizing the senior center building and site work construction contracts. The bids were open, about 2 weeks ago, Tim? August 4th. I know I sat in on the bids, and I think if our architect, you know, he doesn't smile much, but when he smiles big, he was very happy with the bids, the way they came in, and we all were. So I think Nate's going to give us a broad overview of where they are, and you have the team up here that can go a little bit further. So,
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll present from here because I didn't bring my clicker this evening. But I just want to say it's an absolute honor to be up here to talk about this project with the gentlemen that are with me. But I know Michelle Crum was here earlier. This has clearly been a team effort, especially as I've heard more and more about the history of this project and how it kind of came together. I'm sure the mayor and others will have more that they want to add, but this is a key milestone into making this project a reality that I know there's been a lot of discussion and work on that over the years. What you have this evening is the award of bid for the project, the two major components, one being the building construction, the other being the site work. Mr. Lodge and Mr. Kendra are both here that if there are specific questions that have to do with the actual bid award, these gentlemen can answer those. What I'm going to be focusing on tonight, and one of the reasons I asked Chris to come up here is in case there's any questions about how we're going to fund this project. And so we're going to walk through that here briefly before we get over to the bid. So what you're seeing in front of you here is a breakdown. It's a little bit small, but hopefully in front of you you'll have a little bit better idea. But this is essentially just a summary of the bid tab, or the overall project cost is a better way to phrase that. Overall costs, when you're looking at just the building and the site work, we came in under $10 million for that project. That was much better than what we were anticipating. I was not here for the bid opening, but I understand it was an audible celebration when those numbers came in. As the commission and the community may recognize, there has been a series of funding sources that had already been kind of identified to get this project rolling. The first and foremost, the biggest piece, is a grant that was received through the MEDC of $7 million. The city committed some dollars originally through the ARPA process about a year or two ago when that first came through. The county also committed through fund balance of the senior program, $250,000. And then the other piece, which the mayor is somebody that's been here longer than I will have to explain it, but we have fund balance with the senior, in one of the senior funds that has to do with a lot of the fundraising and other activities that have taken place over the years.
last 20 years.
Last 20 years, so.
Maybe 25. I don't know.
There's
a lot of chicken dinners.
345,000 or so that were estimated in there.
That's the balance that we have at this point.
According to the Treasury. According to Treasury. So there's a potential, and I want to highlight potential gap, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. There's a potential gap of just over $1.9 million that we still need to pull together in order to fully fund this project. So what I wanted to take some time to walk through is the strategies that the staff, the mayor, commission, the county, the community are all working towards to fill that gap. First and foremost, we have a grant that is going in to LEO, that's the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. This is a grant of $1.95 million. This has been, again, another team effort with the city and the county and others to pull this grant application together. It was almost like this grant was written for this particular project. It is for community centers. The state wants to get these dollars spent fast, and I doubt there's going to be too many projects that are as shovel-ready as ours is. So we are cautiously optimistic about this, although we've had a very successful history with grants through the state recently. So we're hoping for another win, and that we find out in October? October. And we'll have Tim come back to celebrate with us if we get it awarded, if he'll join us. So what's the contingency plan? I'm going to walk through this just a little bit, but there was a lot of conversation with ourselves, the county, the team, the mayor, and others to kind of come up with this contingency plan. So first and foremost, the city just adopted an electrification policy. And as I was going through some of the budget and talking with our team here, there's two items in particular that would be a good way to support that electrification policy, and we have room in the ARPA funds where we could set dollars aside. The first and foremost is for the geothermal system and partial snow melt. The other advantage to making sure we have that as a part of this project is with the energy modeling that Ray's team did, it ultimately pays for itself over a 20-year period, I think is what it is. It's a great investment. The other one is the standing seam metal roof. Now, why in the heck would that be supportive of our electrification? The reason it's supportive of the electrification is one of the reasons, besides the less maintenance, is that roof would help support future solar. I met with Ray today just to confirm that everything that we're doing with this project will make it solar ready if we do choose to go that route. And we will have all the conduits, everything in place, that if there's going to be an extension of solar on that site, it will be ready for that. We have the Barlow Street. We have potential, which would come from local streets. We have the potential brownfield dollars, and then what we're kind of calling undetermined. And that's where I'd like to turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor, if you can take over on this.
Beginning from over a year ago, I mean, when last time I got to meet with the seniors, we made it clear that there could be some fundraising efforts that we would expect the Friends to undertake, but we didn't know at what level that we would need that. And I met with Mr. Carruthers today, who is the chair of this. Two of the things that if we can't get the grant, you know, and we hope that, you know, we do, because I think we have just as good of a chance as any. I think we're past shovel ready. I think we will have the shovels already moving, and we just need them to help finish this up. Two things that I truly believe that we need to talk about is the racket courts as well as and the commercial kitchen equipment. And those are the two areas that right now I would strongly encourage the Friends to start focusing on. Now, when you can do that, and Mr. Carruthers and I met today, and so he'll be getting together with you folks to see what you can do to help with those two particular projects. The reason why we picked those two is because this may take a little bit of time to raise that money. We don't know. But both of those, like the racket courts and the kitchen equipment, we won't need those two items till almost toward the end of the project. So there's more than enough time to hopefully work through that. And if you get close, who knows what the funding situation the city will be at that point, and maybe, or the county or somebody else that could help us with that. So those are the two main arenas that we would hope that the Friends will be focused on. The covered drop-off roof and the drop-off and making it into a green roof. Part of me says, well, that's the first thing that we can delete, but if we're going to build this, you're only going to do it once. And so let's make sure the building is going to be, you know, something that we're really going to be proud of. And I know that we have some fund balance in our general fund that we've held aside that we can look to down the road. The last part of it is the furnishings. I know we talked last week if through the senior center fund, you know, through that, if there's going to be enough cash that over the next 2 years they can raise enough money to do that, but then we'll look at that as it comes down the road. So, but, you know, we do have, you know, chairs and tables that are being moved off-site, you know, for storage. So there are things that we can use, but it'd be nice to start a new building with better furnishings, but we can work on that. Again, that's not going to be needed till you get closer to the end of the project. I know as some of our folks have heard, unless we get a building, I'm not going to worry too much about furnishings or kitchen equipment. We've got to get the building built, and that's the first priority. And I feel very comfortable with what we're looking at and what we could possibly do. These decisions on the options don't have to be played out until after we hear about the grant. You know, so it's really going to be the next commission that's going to be looking at these opportunities. You know, so that they can look at it, but it can be done. So I'm not as worried about it. And I think from my notes, which I will pass along, you know, it should be able to work itself through. So.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned, and as you just heard from the mayor, we're very comfortable with where we're at. And the last thing I just want to note is, you know, there's been a couple questions of, okay, where does the county fit into all this. They've already committed some dollars. As everybody, I think, knows, it's our park, it's our building, but it's the senior connection, it's called? Senior Center Network that operates the senior programming out of this building. So what does that look like? I was talking with Chris, and we feel good enough that we can share kind of the outline of the agreement we're working on between the county and the city with Lauren. And we're really trying to look at this agreement as a down payment and ensuring that we are able to maintain and sustain the quality of this facility. The last thing you want to do is build something and then you just kind of let it go, right? So what we're looking at here is what would approximately be a 10-year agreement. It would mirror the same timeline as the existing millage that the county operates. It will provide for the provisions of the senior programming that they are to bring to the facility. It will discuss any uses, if any, outside of the normal operating hours of the senior center and their programming. What I think I guess it's not necessarily unique because you just did something kind of similar to this, but what we've talked about with the county is instead of them paying their agreement requirements annually, that they would potentially bring this forward as a lump sum so that we can put a down payment into a reserve fund that is set aside for the operation and maintenance of this facility to ensure we have the start of a piggy bank to replace things as they break. The last thing that this will include is if there is any sort of revenue that comes into the facility, is there some sort of a revenue sharing component to this, which would again be used to help seed that long-term reserve fund for ongoing maintenance and capital investment. So with that, we've got the whole team up here ready to answer any questions that you may have.
When you come up to revenue sharing, because we're hoping that this building will be used, while its primary use is as a senior center, but there could be opportunities where, you know, if you have a commercial kitchen that caterers could come in and use it, but then you can use it for weddings. If you've seen the design, it's going to be set up pretty nice, so things like that can happen. We would leave it, I would hopefully leave it to the senior center staff to, you know, to reserve those, operate it. But whatever revenue they receive, such as if it's $1,000 to rent it, which I think that would be cheap, but I mean, I'm just giving as a number. I threw out something like 25% of that would come to the city to go into that reserve fund for future capital improvements that will need to be taken. For the first 10 years, it's not going to be as much. But you start getting into year 15, you don't know. And we want to start putting some money aside instead of wondering how we're going to do this. Again, it's all tied to the current millage rate. I mean, the current millage that's out there, which will expire in, what, 9 more years or something like that. So this first agreement will finish up in, you know, about 8 years, but they're willing to, instead of putting a rent that we get it every year, they're thinking and looking at, but until they get it through their system, of doing that up front, so at least we can be earning some interest off it, but it's going to be in the reserve fund. Again, if the seniors raise more than $250,000, you know, whatever we need for that, that could go into that reserve fund for future capital, such as for equipment. So, but that's down the road too. So that's kind of the game plan, and started this 2 years ago, and when I knew I didn't have an opponent, start building the relationships with the county and working to try to get this done. Thanks to the help of this body, you allowed me to play more than I probably should have, but thank you very much, and thank you to Senator Smith for helping us to get, ex-Senator Smith for getting $7 million, because that really started this discussion. Says, oh, maybe this could happen. Thank you very much. So with that, I thank you, everybody, for your work. And Ray, thank you for keeping your pencil sharp and looking around for a few things. So appreciate it. Timothy?
Well, I'm here just to answer any questions. The bid summary that we provided is, you know, the overall, the spreadsheet shows the alternates and what we accepted. We deliberated over whether we would save the permeable pavement versus the green roof, and we said, you know, this is Traverse City, so we put both options in, thinking that that would be favorable. So with that, we had the site work contracts, and we had 3 bidders. Elmer's was a low bidder in that. We chose to do the contract separate to also look at the economy of not having the general contractor markup on the site work. We had very competitive bids on $1.895 million worth of work. There was about less than $200 difference between the two low bidders, which is phenomenal. For the building contract, we had 4 bidders. A little bit Hallmark Construction. Hallmark Construction has worked with the city over the many years, and we definitely recommend them. So if there's any questions related to that about the options or anything, the team is here to, look at that. There's 2 contracts that we're asking to be authorized, along with contingency provision for the city manager.
Okay. Any questions? We've been working at this for 2 years, folks.
And other people have been working for a lot more than 2 years.
Yeah.
Well,
including some people who worked for the last 2 years and previously.
and a lot of times before that.
So,
because,
actually,
I
I was-
helped serve a lot of chicken dinners, so.
Yes. and played a lot of shuffleboard. Actually, I
Don't
agree with.
laugh at me.
I agree with Richard. We've talked about this a lot, and not to cut off questions if they come, but I just am very excited that this is finally at the stage, and thank Ray and Tim and everybody who's worked on it over the years, and our steadfast senior friends with Lil and the Stedmans there. You guys have all done such good jobs. So I just wanted to go ahead and make the motion that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a contract with Hallmark Construction in the amount not to exceed $6,853,590 for the senior center building construction. Such contract subject to its substance by the interim city manager, and it's formed by the city attorney with funds available in the capital projects fund. And further, that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to execute a contract with Elmer's Crane and Dozer in the amount not to exceed $1,895,685 for senior center building site work. Such contract subject to its substance by the interim city manager, and it's formed by the city attorney with funds available in the capital project fund. And further, that the interim city manager be authorized to manage a contingency in the amount of $350,000, 4% of the construction contract's amount, for any unforeseen or unknown work related to the project, with funds to come from the capital project fund. And finally, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents in connection with the utilization of the project contingency, with such documents subject to approval to its substance by the interim city manager, and it's formed by the city attorney.
Support.
Can I request a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Sure.
As
Really?
much as I would
After
love,
all that? Just kidding.
as much as I would love to continue to work with Chris and Ray on this project, I think you're going to want to have interim manager and successor
/ city manager.
on the contingency, just to avoid any technicalities.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you take that friendly amendment?
You take that friendly amendment?
If I could
Yes,
also,
I do, yes.
Okay.
if I could also speak, can we have the not to exceed for the 2 contracts be referenced and looped back through the contingency so that it
Excuse me, back
the-
up.
We have a contingency amount, and then we have the motion that says not to exceed. But if we use the contingency, those amounts are going to be changed. So could we say something not to exceed except for the provision of the use of the contingency?
But doesn't the contingency part provision
Yeah, that's what the
cover that?
contingency's for.
Well, but by the letter, it says not to exceed, so we can't apply
All
those
right,
to those
so after
individual
1
contracts.
million, not to exceed $1,895,685, except for the use of contingency furthermore described.
Something like that, thank you.
Okay.
Is that right, Lauren?
Yeah, you can do the
Yeah,
same thing.
well, Sarah and I will work it out.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys
We
figure out is
understand
legally
what
It's formed by the
correct.
city attorney.
Whatever you figure out is legally correct is what I
The not to
said.
exceed is subject to the contingency that's been
I'll make-
authorized.
Yep,
I
okay.
mean, before I sign it, I'll make sure the motion has read completely.
I trust our attorney.
Okay.
As well as you.
And where it says, city manager or interim city manager, you could do / city manager, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and we have support.
Public comment.
Does anyone have any negative comments on this? Yeah, no, it's it was
Just one second.
Go ahead, sir.
Problem?
Mr. Buckhalter. Mr. Buckhalter, please, we know what your concerns are, so let's go ahead and address them, please.
Rick Buckholder, 932 Kelly Street, I'm a Traverse City resident. I was asked not to cause problems with this for various reasons, which is fine. But I have to tell you, I do not care what's going on with the construction of the building. My point has been and is tonight, what you're doing on the front lawn of the project, people have been using that park for recreational and beach purposes since 1930, 90 years. And all the discussions concerning building a new senior center were about a building. I do not recall any public engagement about what should we do with the park land, because it's city-owned park owned by the city residents. The plan is to cut 30 trees, 30, that apparently have nothing to do with where the building is going to be placed. I just don't understand it. In addition to that, more people use the front lawn between the current building and the beach than actually use the beach. And they're city residents that live in the neighborhoods. The plan is to put sidewalks where the people for decades and decades, 90 years, have gone down there to picnic. I mean, why is this happening? I don't do that, Richard. That's
Well,
not polite.
I know it's not polite, but you're making statements that you can't document one way or the other.
And neither can you. I'm down
Well,
there every day, and
don't
I've never seen
well,
you
then
out
I
on
will
the lawn.
disagree with you because, I drive up and down that street a lot because I live on that side of town. I have yet in 33 years or 32 years seen people picnicking out on the front lawn
Then why do they have 4 picnic tables? You don't make any sense.
because they're probably part of the shuffleboard courts.
They're at the opposite end of the property.
Oh, okay, that's fine, Rick. You and I disagree, but that's fine. Okay, that
This
didn't
whole
count against
meeting
his,
has
that
been
didn't
just
count
nasty.
against his 3 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm one of those people that have used that particular piece of land for all of my 83 years. I was born in this city. My name is Lil Ostendorf, and I live on Washington Street. Today, I spent a couple of hours looking at this many reports. From the one that went back the furthest was 2000. We need this senior center, and I'm not going to argue with you on that. You already know that. I want to thank the City Commission. If I could get on my knees and thank you, I would, but I'd never get back up. For those of you who are too young to remember, in 1968, the shuffleboard cabana, where I used to get those little discs to play with when I was 8, was given to the seniors as a center. That was in 1968, and the addition was afforded. There's a number of individuals that are deserving of our thanks. 2 of them are right here. These are the Stedman boys. If you don't know who they are, this is Bob and this is Dick. Without those 2, we wouldn't be here today. They have spent hours. Bob incorporated us to a 3C, whatever that was. Their persistence to finally reach this point where we actually hope to see the dirt dug and my chair on the porch. Don't forget that, Ray. I think we need to thank Lori Wells, who gave many years of her life to that senior center, with 164 programs being conducted in that dilapidated building. Jim Crothers, Marty Coburn, who was with us at the very first meeting that we had many years ago, the entire board of the Friends of the Senior Center, as well as the many folks who have actively worked to build it on the bay. I will reiterate my feeling that I want to see this building before I die. Thank you.
Dick Stedman from Traverse City. Lil, you said it beautifully, and we congratulate the City Commission. The one area that I'm not quite sure of from your description, Mayor, was the portico in front of the building, so that seniors, particularly those who are disabled, would be able to leave their cars and so on in inclement weather.
Oh,
Is
it's
that
still
part
included
of
in the
the
project. It's in the
plan?
project.
Is that
Sir,
part of the initial bid?
Yes, it is.
It is.
It
Wonderful.
is. It is.
That's great. Congratulations. That's terrific.
My name is Bob Stedman, and I'm like Lil. I'd like to have this thing done before I'm gone, which unfortunately is probably going to be fairly soon. I want to thank you all. The city has been with the seniors from the beginning. The staff, everybody has supported us. We've loved you for it. You've asked a lot of questions, we've asked questions, but you've always been solid supporting us, and we appreciate it so much. I want to make one small point. When we talk about financing, obviously when we set up the corporation Senior Center Friends, one of the things that we were concerned about was fundraising. In those days, it was going to cost a heck of a lot less money than it does today. So we were thinking maybe we could help, never to do the whole job, but to help. And then we came up with the concept of a millage, because we could run a millage on a 2-year basis that would pay for the whole building and give us a fund to sustain the building for a period of time. The county decided not to do that, but now we're in a situation where the county apparently is amenable in many ways. There's a lot of discussion going on, and it may be that they kind of want to ride along with us for the time. If so, it would be a very simple matter to propose a special election for a 1% millage increase to add to that millage. Now, I know, Richard, I know you don't think they'll do it.
No, I'm
And
not,
quite
and I won't
honestly-
even propose it. I'm not even going to propose it.
You ought to, because
I'm not.
I know you won't. But the fact is that 1% added to the current millage, would pay for all of the money that you're talking about. You're talking about it would bring in more than $3 million annually. So, I mean, it's a simple proposition because the county doesn't have to spend a dime. But anyway, that's just my thought, and thank you so much. I'm like Lil, if I went down on my knees, I'd never get up.
If there's to be an increase, that the county and the citizen can decide that 9 years from now. This is where we are today, so.
I know.
Okay, this-
I love you. I know you're doing the job.
okay, thank you.
Procedurally, they could move forward with that next year, but it's unlikely
No,
to happen.
It's 10 years, it's 9 years from now. Plan on it that way. Okay. We have a motion. Any other questions or concerns? We have a motion and we have support. All those in favor of the motion as we have it, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Thank you very much.
And we're going to get that grant in October.
Yes, we are.
And then
Yeah, we
that's
are.
it.
Now,
Let's make
first
that-
of all,
Let's make that resolution right now.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
First of all, that is your next item on here. We have to apply for the grant,
Let's do
You
it.
have
can
a
get it.
resolution that's in your packet that's been put together for the amount we're going to do, and it's a very simple motion.
I'll make the
That the-
motion.
That the resolution of authorization be adopted. Now, it's simple, who would like to
Maya
make
just made it.
Oh, she-
I sure would.
Ms. Stanley has made that motion. Who's going to support that motion?
Me.
There you go.
Okay, we have motion support on now.
So Maya and me.
With all due respect, I'm not asking for comment. Yeah, we're going after it. So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed say nay. The motion passes. Under new, there is
Yeah,
no
yeah,
new,
Lil, we just passed it.
we just passed it. Under new business, there is no new business. Under appointments, we have one appointment for consideration. That appointment is for the reappointment of, let me get the name down here right.
Laura Ness.
Laura Ness, as recommended by the, to the Recreational Authority. And Mr. Wilson, I think, was the chair of that committee, and I know Mr. Warner couldn't make that meeting, and Mr. Treadwell was there, so and I happened to sit in on it. So.
Correct, and we met, and it was the ad hoc's recommendation that Mrs. Ness be reappointed, or that we move forward with that. Or I'll just make the motion that Laura Ness is recommended for appointment to the City of Traverse City and Charter Township of Garfield Recreational Authority, term expiring June 30th, 2024, seat previously held by Laura Ness, as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Commissioner Wilson, Commissioner Werner, and Commissioner Treadwell.
Support.
We have a motion to support. Any questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Okay, you have a number of reports and announcements and correspondence that you can go through at your leisure. We have no reserve public comment. Is there anyone here for general public comment?
Real quick, on the Laura Ness motion, it's supposed to be 2026, not 2024.
Okay, it's 26.
On what?
On the motion, I think you must have said.
I wondered.
I just read.
No,
what
it was
there.
2024 in the packet.
It was
but-
in the packet, yeah. It's 2026.
Can I modify?
By consensus, can we agree to that change? Okay.
You're all good.
No, I thought I
Okay.
saw 26. I mean, my
I saw
arrow was in the
24.
way, so I'm sure it meant
Yeah,
26.
in the staff
just
report, it
report.
says 26. In the memo, it says 24.
All right. So with that, so we have any general public comment? Don't see any. Only have one item under the mayor and city commissioners. Last Wednesday, along with Glenn Chow of the Conservancy, he and I were in front of the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Board promoting the grant that we are requesting of them of $2,352,000 as it relates to the addition to the Brown Bridge Quiet Area. So we went up and made our pitch, and I think it was well received. So we'll wait and see. They'll make their decision in December, of course. The other part will also depend upon what the voters decide in November. So anyway, we made the pitch. We were asked to be there. I went on a road trip, so there you go.
There you go.
So there you go. And Glenn made me do all the talking.
Yeah.
It was fun. I enjoyed it. So anyway, with that, anybody else got anything they need to add? Oh, by the way, there is a little card on your desk for something about showing up Wednesday at 1 o'clock, the end of an era, so at the senior center. I know we probably didn't RSVP on time, but I don't think they'll kick us out, so we'll be ready to do that. So, anybody else? All right, with nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You want-